We got an announcement yesterday on a starting quarterback in the NFL. It is now official. These are the words of Antonio Pierce, not mine. Gardner Minshew, another team, another starting role. He has earned the job. He beat Aiden O'Connell for the starting gig. And now he will be starting for the Raiders, at least to start the season. Now, both quarterbacks did not have a great preseason, but even after Saturday night's game, it seems like Pierce and the hierarchy at the Raiders had to sit down and make a final decision before they go into week 3 and then, of course, into the season. But Pierce told the media yesterday that it wasn't as much about the preseason results as some of the intangibles that Minshew brings.
Gardner Minshew is going to be the starting quarterback the 2024 season. Myself, Telesco, and Luke Getsy discussed it this morning. A lot of things went into it. It wasn't based off of last night. There's a lot of factors. So we feel like Gardner gives us the best opportunity to get off to a fast start, and that's what we're going with. We support him. Our team's behind it. Our staff's behind it. Our organization's behind it. Yeah, experience, the operation, the processing, just everything we saw in practice. Some of it showed up in the games. A lot of stuff we can get better at. I don't think anything here is a finished product, but based off of where we want to go in the first quarter of the season, we feel like Gardner gives us the best opportunity.
Yeah, certainly Minshew has had his chances in the past. He's made the most of some of them. Inevitably, it does seem like every team gives him the chance and then takes away the starting role for him at some point. We'll see if it's the same thing with Minshew. All right, exciting golf tournament over the weekend. Hideki Matsuyama ends up taking the St. Jude Championship as he ends up beating Xander Schauffele, and Schauffele finished second place in the tournament. But, yeah, a phenomenal tournament, I would say. His 10th win on the PGA Tour and ahead of the Cup playoffs. Really fantastic finish for him. By the way, 2 strokes ahead of Xander to win, followed by Victor Hovland, Scotty Scheffler, and then Sam Burns right behind him, 13 under par. Congrats to Hideki, and there he is, lifting the trophy. Couple of NFL preseason games last night, including the Denver Broncos, who have made the most of this preseason, that's for sure. So has Bo Nix. They beat the Packers by a final of 27-2 yesterday, and Nix thus far has looked the part of a starting quarterback in the NFL. Again, it is just a preseason, but Sean Payton has given him the chance to succeed. And Nix has said, like every other quarterback says, executing the plays that he's asked to execute has been the key.
Yeah, it felt really good. I thought we started off really well. Defense got a huge stop, flipped the field for us, and we were able to walk away with points. You'd like to get a touchdown in that situation, but then we were able to turn back around, go down and get a touchdown. So I thought we executed well. We stayed in front of the chains. Even though we got behind on that one, we were able to get a chunk play and get back in the red zone and get a first down. So that was really good. You like to see what those guys can do, and tonight they made plays. And you got Tim, Cortland, all those guys that were out there making plays and executing the play. So nothing that was crazy. I mean, we see it every day, but those guys just went out there and put it on film.
Yeah, good look for Denver yesterday. True story. Last night, I thought, because I saw a social media post of Tom Brady at the 49ers game, I thought for some reason he was calling the game on Fox, because I was like, oh, he must be getting some practice time in, like all the other announcers. So I tuned it in, and he ain't doing the game. And so then I just tuned it right out. But I knew we'd be talking about it here on the show today. 49ers 16-10, the final score there. By the way, Josh Dobbs again. I mean, every team this guy plays on, he ends up helping them, and he'll probably help the 49ers at some point this season. 16-10, the final there. There's a picture of Dobbs in a 49ers uniform. Hey, Randy Gregory, boy, this saga continues. This time the Buccaneers released him, never showed up to camp. They never knew why, didn't report. He's played with the Broncos and the Cowboys, and he certainly had some, personal issues in the past. So we wish him the best if this is the end of the line. But needless to say, it's been a lot of drama over the course of Gregory's career. Not so much for Stephon Gilmore, always playing at a high level. Surprisingly unsigned, the Vikings did sign him to a 1-year contract, $10 million. $7 million of that is guaranteed. All right, week 0 is here. College football is this Saturday, and we'll be previewing the games all week long, including live programming coming up Saturday morning with college football today. Florida State will open up the season against Georgia Tech. That's the first game. Boise State made an announcement yesterday. A little surprising. Maddox Madsen is their starting quarterback, beating out Malachi Nelson for the starting job. And so this is a little bit of a surprise here. Some people thought Nelson would be the starter for the Broncos. Louisville has lost their wide receiver, Khalid Lacey, to a broken collarbone. He was one of the top players to sign in the transfer portal. It was expected to be either their wide receiver 1 or 2 going into the season. And also, you may remember the individual that was on the coaching staff at the University of Michigan that was being accused of going to other places and wearing mustaches and glasses and trying to steal signs and do some other things. And they made a 30 for 30 about it. I haven't seen it yet, but it's going to come out. Connor Stallions, he's been hired as defensive coordinator at Mumford High School. Congratulations to Connor Stallions. All right, last night, fun game at Williamsport between the Tigers and the Yankees. It was the Tigers taking the win there in front of a lot of kids. A great scene, without a doubt. 3-2 the final as the Tigers win. And the Yankees basically decided at the trade deadline to not attack the bullpen, not get anybody extra. And boy, Clay Holmes blew it again. 10th save blown in Major League Baseball this season. That, of course, leads Major League Baseball. By the way, next year, when they do this game in Williamsport once again, it's going to be the New York Mets and Seattle Mariners. So that will be the next one. And it'll be August 17th, 2025. How about the Tampa Bay Rays? They trade everybody away and they just keep winning. They beat the Diamondbacks, not once, not twice, but 3 times this weekend. Swept, and Ketel Marte re-aggravated his sprained ankle. We'll see what happens with him. Diamondbacks' first 3-game skid since June, so we won't hold them completely accountable. They've been playing great baseball since the All-Star break. Austin Riley, by the way, yesterday, another injury to the Atlanta Braves. He was hit in the hand with a 97-mile-an-hour fastball as they head back to Atlanta. They're going to do some imaging to see if they can get more results. As of right now, no word how much time he will miss, and the Braves have been missing everybody this season, fair to say. All right, Caitlin Clark, another big game for her yesterday. The Fever beat the Storm 92-75. Caitlin Clark on the sidelines, yelling at the other sideline, saying to stop crying. I don't know if you guys saw that yesterday. She's feeling herself right now, and they're playing much better. jaWilson broke her own record in the Aces victory, 87-71 over the Sparks. She had 34 points and 13 rebounds. 17th game with 20 points and 10-plus rebounds. And they end up winning by 16, although the LA Sparks are horrible. They've been getting crushed almost every single game. Also, Las Vegas Aces coach Becky Hammon is standing firm on this case with De'Erica Hamby. Hamby filed a federal lawsuit on Monday alleging that because of her pregnancy, she was subject to repeated acts of intimidation and discrimination on the Aces. And meanwhile, the Philadelphia 76ers have agreed to a 1-year, $2.1 million contract with a forward named Gershon Yabusele, a 2016 first-round pick from the Celtics. He was playing for France and helped them a lot in the Olympics. And there is some thought process that because of that performance at the Olympics, he has earned himself a new contract. So congratulations to him. Welcome back to Newswire here on SportsGrid. Time to dive in with our guest contributor from Legal Sports Report. You can read about all of the things that we discuss over at LegalSportsReport.com. Today's contributor is Jim Gazzale to hit on the very latest on sports betting in Indiana, Kentucky, and we'll start off with the latest earnings from FanDuel. Jim, great to have you back here on Newswire.
Hey, Craig. Thanks for having me, as always.
Let's get started here, and the numbers are in from July for FanDuel, and boy, what a huge number here. A lot of parlays, I'm guessing, Jim, being played here. Am I seeing 1 billion with a B for July? Is that accurate?
Yeah, 1 billion with a B for July in New York, and it's the first July that New York sports betting handle has eclipsed that $1 billion threshold. If you look back in July 2022, almost 801 million, 23, 962 million, and then last month, $1.26 billion bet in New York. It's the 12th consecutive month now that New York sports bettors have sent in over $1 billion. That market just seems to continue to be growing as large as it is with those massive dollar amounts. Does seem to be growing, and it'll be interesting to see what happens here in the next couple of weeks and months as football season gets underway. FanDuel, the big winner, I guess you could say, in July in New York, $482.5 million in handle, $59.3 million in revenue. They continue to set the pace in this market. And like you said off the top, Craig, parlays, I'm sure, has a lot to do with that nearly $60 million in winnings from July. Unfortunately, in we don't get a per bet or bet style, per sport, whatever you want to call it, breakdown So, we can't exactly say for sure if and how much of that was due to parlays. But as we've seen in other markets across the country, I'm sure it was a large percentage of their winnings. One other interesting note coming out of New York in July was Fanatics, nearly $9 million in winnings for Fanatics, and that was the highest total, the highest monthly total for Fanatics. They've only been active in New York for a handful of months now as they took over for PointsBet. But even going back to the PointsBet days, that $8.9 million in revenue from July is the best when you're looking at Fanatics or even PointsBet going back to when that market opened in January of 2022, Craig.
Got it. All right. So July is a big month for FanDuel. And what I'm seeing here from Churchill Downs and some of the other horse racing entities, especially for people who are interested on betting on horse racing, is that, Jim, really no demise for any sports betting. In fact, not just small percentage rises in sports betting, but pretty significant rises across a lot of the major operators like DraftKings and FanDuel. I mean, Jim, sometimes we could do a story and paint a narrative if this was only 5 or 10%. But I mean, I'm looking at these numbers. This is 30, 40% revenue.
Yeah, so the Kentucky market has been solid since they launched there in September. In June, $145.7 million that was bet, and that pushed that total market past that $2 billion mark in total handle since September. And if you recall, the retail sports books opened up on that opening night of the NFL season last September, and then the online sports books, the sports betting apps, they followed a couple weeks later towards the end of September. But all in all, over $2 billion bet in Kentucky from September through June. And those percentages there were the market share that each of the operators has. DraftKings has the largest market share of handle there with 39%. BetMGM and Bet365 keep going back and forth for that third and fourth position with roughly 6% of the market. ESPN Bet a couple of percentage points below that with 4.5%. And what we've seen from Bet365 and some of these other markets, especially in the Midwest like Ohio, where they're really starting to cement themselves as that third or fourth player in those markets, obviously behind those top two, FanDuel and DraftKings, like we see in just about every single market across the country. But in these markets, these we'll call them smaller markets, Bet365 does seem to be growing in popularity. Churchill Downs on the retail side, the most popular retail in-person sports book in Kentucky, $32.1 million in bets at Churchill Downs. And I found that interesting, mostly because they do shut that sports book down at points throughout the year when they have these marquee horse racing events. I recall around the Kentucky Derby, in the lead up to the Derby, and even a few days past the Derby, with all of the preparations and all of the luxury seating that they have there, that sportsbook was closed for at least 2 weeks, if not more. So for them to still be tops in the retail market there, Churchill Downs is in Kentucky, I thought that was pretty impressive, Craig.
Yeah, definitely so. And I would say that if that's not one of the big stories of the year of success, it has to be Indiana and their sports betting success as well, because as we're closing out the summer and moving into the fall here, it appears as though this market is one of the nice success stories of the year, rising in popularity and revenue across the board.
Yeah, and perhaps I'm the only one that seems mostly interested in this Indiana market, but tracking it over the last year and a half or so and seeing how they felt a little bit of a pinch last year with Ohio coming online at the beginning of 2023 in January, and then you had, like we just talked about, the Kentucky market coming on in September. The numbers did seem to shrink a little bit with that added competition. So this year so far, we've seen Indiana return to those 2022 figures, like we've talked about a bunch here, Craig. We've talked about it for a handful of months consecutively now. And the Indiana sportsbooks in July, they won more than 11%. They kept more than 11% of the sports betting dollars there. And that 11.3% win rate in July was the highest so far this year, and even going back to last July. So when we typically see the volume of betting, the betting handle come down June, July, and the summer months, when a lot of the major sports aren't in action, it's baseball. And, of course, we had the Olympics this year, but, it doesn't have the power that the NFL obviously has, or the
Right.
NBA obviously has. So we tend to see those handle figures come down, but it is a positive sign to see that the sports books are at least for them, maybe not necessarily for the bettors, but it is a positive sign on the revenue end for the sports books to see that double digit hold. And again, the revenue, nearly $29.5 million in July in Indiana. That's up 2022 numbers, and the handle $261.1 million in July, also up over 2022 numbers in July. So a positive trend in the right direction for Indiana, kind of shaking off those two states, Ohio and Kentucky, that legalized sports betting last year.
Yeah, and I would say that that's one of the states to keep an eye on. But real quick, let's get to Nebraska before we end. Any resolution yet here on this, Jim, or we're still going to have to wait?
Yeah, we're still waiting. Tracking it, the legislature in that special session, they opened up and quickly adjourned this morning.
All right.
Sports hasn't come up just yet. Maybe not, most likely not, but we'll keep tracking it and see if there's a resolution soon here in the next couple days.
All right, thanks, Jim. We are watching to see, by the way, what I'm alluding to is Nebraska legalizing online sports betting potentially this week. All right, Jim, thanks a lot.